Yeah, down to our last home SEC series of the year, so we're anxious and ready to go. Had a good workout today, and anxious to get back out there on the field and play some baseball. So happy to answer questions.
All right, we'll start with Colin.
Mark, just as the season winds down, what's the vibe you get in the clubhouse right now, and how are you kind of keeping guys maybe engaged as that margin for the postseason gets smaller and smaller?
Yeah, guys still know they have a lot to play for, and I think that in and of itself is should keep you motivated. We're getting to play baseball. Classes are over. This is, for a college baseball player, this is the best time of the year. You're playing baseball. The games matter. They don't have to go to class, and so I think that's enough motivation in and of itself. And the fact that we still have a lot to play for, and there's still something there if we get hot, I think that's all the motivation they need.
Michael?
Yeah, Mark, looking at Kentucky, obviously coming off a strong series, what's kind of your view on them and how you guys match up?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very evenly matched series. I think we're similar in a lot of ways. They have 2 guys with double-digit homers. They've got 4 guys with double-digit stolen bases. They've got some good arms, especially Guilfoyle coming out of the pen, maybe up for SEC Pitcher of the Year. So he's a lockdown guy that they're going to try to get a lead and hand him the ball. So they play good defense. It's just a solid team all the way around. And I think all you need to know is that they beat Tennessee last weekend in a series. So I think that's a major statement.
John Will?
What's your view on the RPI, and do you understand why y'all are where you are right now in that metric?
I'm disappointed that we're in the 60s because there's another metric. If you go on the Warren Nolan website, which I think a lot of people do, that's where they go. They have another metric that they use called ELO, and it uses a little bit different metrics. I think they may be a little bit more old school on the RPI, but they have us in the 30s. And so there's a drastic difference between our RPI and what that metric says. That being said, that's what the committee uses these days. We'll see how much they use it this year compared to years past. But at the end of the day, you've got to win a lot of games. I think our RPI, the strength of schedule, obviously is one of the best in the country, but we've let some games slip away that we generally don't let slip away. And I think that's what you can look at for why the RPI is where it is.
Colin?
Mark, how is Eli doing, and kind of how do you plan to set up your pitching rotation this weekend?
Yeah, Eli right now is being evaluated by doctors as we speak. He's going through some of those tests. For the weekend, we'll stay status quo. We'll go with Thomas Hall and Sanders, just like last week, and kind of roll from there. So what Eli's availability will be the rest of the year is still to be determined.
I guess, how do you balance, when do you start to maybe kind of peak towards the SEC tournament and trying to structure your pitching? Is it this weekend? Is it next weekend? Or do you just let's try to win as many games as possible?
It started, Colin, a little bit this week in terms of we were trying to figure out and look at the calendar and do the math in terms of the day's rest for bouncing back for the conference tournament. And so we looked at some different options and moving some guys around. But at the end of the day, based on a lot of external factors, but also some internal factors that we're dealing with right now with some guys, it just felt like the best thing to do was stay status quo this weekend. And then after we see the results of this weekend, then we can reevaluate going into Florida.
John?
What have the last couple of days of practice been like for you guys after, coming back after the Tuesday loss? Yeah,
energetic. Yesterday was all about getting their minds engaged and creating some chaos and making them think fast and play fast. And we did that defensively, but also offensively, just to kind of, just do something that was not status quo. Because at this point in the season, it's a lot of times it can be same old. And so after a loss, you want to just try to mix it up. We're not having 3 and 4 hour practices at this point in the year. Between the heat, between the long season, that doesn't make any sense. So we're trying to get them out there, for about a good hour and a half to 2 hours of quality work, get them back in the weight room to continue to keep up their strength and keep them mentally and physically fresh as much as we possibly can.
Colin?
Mark, just kind of as the season ends, the team kind of is what it is at this point with after 50 games or so. Just, is there anything you guys can do as coaches to kind of try to change some momentum up, or is it just a matter of guys, when they go out there, they just have to play well and beat the other team?
No, baseball is about how do you show up and play that day? Who's your starting pitcher? How you closing games out? What kind of bats you're taking? There's no magic formula at this point. Baseball is a marathon. We talked about that all year. And this is just another mile in that marathon. So it's all about who plays the best baseball at this point. There's no magic tricks to pull out of the bag at this point. It's just you want your guys to play better than their guys.
John?
Pardon me if this is a really dumb question, but with school being out now, are all the guys still around? Have anybody who's been with the team gone on to maybe get ready for summer ball or anything like that, or is everybody still around after classes?
Yeah, everybody that's on our roster and that can still either be playing or rehabbing is still here. Obviously we had a guy go in the transfer portal last week, but other than that, everybody's still here working out.